The next part of step one is costs. So the types of cultivation methods, obviously, they have a direct correlation with the cost. I spent, I don't know how many $100, like a couple $100 on a big old market research book a couple years ago, just to try to figure out what the costs were. And luckily, somebody's done the research, so I'll save you that money. The outdoor estimates were about $250,000 to set up a farm. Now, that's pretty damn close to being right, and that doesn't factor into actually owning the property. That's like throwing a down payment on the property. So yeah, it could be a little bit more, but I mean, that's not the goal. The goal is to what's it cost to get you growing, you know? Now for greenhouse, whatever your outdoor is, just kind of add on to this. With a greenhouse, it really depends on the model and what you're trying to do with the greenhouse. You can do standard hoop huts, and it'll cost you, dick. But then there's $5,000, $100,000 greenhouse models, and then of course you can really step up into, all right, do you want an acre worth of greenhouses? Do you want them glass? Do you want them, to have roof vents, which ideally you should? Do you want them to have roll-up walls? Do you want it to be light dep? Do you want it to be auto light dep? Do you want it to light dep outside versus inside? It gets pretty crazy, to say the least. Now for indoor production, you're looking at least $500,000 to $1 million or more. It's just that simple. There's a lot of requirements. There's a lot of build-out costs. But again, luckily, if we go back to some of the options, there are a few different companies that are setting up massive indoor facilities that will basically rent out the space to you. So just think about that. Right now, considering the marketplace, globally, everybody's about to start getting involved. And so as you enter the game, you need to make sure that your costs are as low as possible so that you can start off with the highest profit generating capability, if that makes sense. Next cost, machine rentals. My fucking God. Holy shit. So you don't realize how much diesel is going to cost you. You don't realize how many different things will break on your excavator or your dozer. First day in, we popped a hydraulic hose on the excavator. I've had trees fall on the dozer and just, bend everything up. I even spent about, I forgot how many thousand, it's on my Instagram, but spent like a couple thousand and saved $8,000 because the guys at the, construction rental place, they had some metal fab guys and they were able to kind of fix some stuff for me and save me a little cash, which worked out. The other thing is your contract labor. Right now it'd be great if you could find some owner operators. Usually they'll charge you a flat rate, something like $100 an hour. So yeah, it might be $800, $1,000 a day, but what somebody can do compared to what you can do, it's no question. Now if you're just pushing dirt, like we had to have two D6s, and a D6 it's the class before you need stairs to get into the dozer. Just to give you an idea of how high that is. You still have to hop on the tracks, but we had to get 2 because ideally you wanted a D8 for the amount of dirt we were pushing. If you're just pushing dirt, you can do it. It sucks. It's boring. It's kind of fun in the beginning, but it gets boring after a while because you're just pushing dirt, rip everything up, and do it again. But if you need an excavator, get somebody that at least knows how to operate them. That'll save you so much money, and not to mention the time. Usually a lot of these people are extremely intelligent and have done all sorts of stuff, and so they have a lot of little bits of information that they can give you, and it's great to kind of keep your money in the same circle as well. So if you can use these people over and over and over again, I think that really helps build your own little micro economy that you're generating, because that's what you are. When you enter this business, you're going to be a little micro economy. You're generating wealth for people. You're generating experiences for people through their your product. Hell, the entire manifestation of this project, you're affecting people. So anyways, next thing is fencing. There are all kinds of fencing you can get. In reality, unless okay, if somebody wants to cut a fence, they're gonna cut a fence. If they want to scale it, they'll scale it. I mean, let's be fucking real. We're even talking about building a wall in Mexico and shit, and everybody's like, well, it'll just climb over, well, it'll just fucking go under. Exactly, it's the same thing here. Just with your fence, put it up and make it look nice, as in the sense of what you're trying to do is keep good people good. You don't want, somebody that's a good person to just, oh, some free weed and ain't nobody looking, and just kind of come and do something stupid, because that happens. It's more of a deterrent, and that's it. If people want to come in your property, they're gonna do it. Yeah, sorry, it is what it is. Water storage is going to be a big one, depending on how much water you need. A lot of it, if you're planning on collecting rainwater, you have to factor in where you're going to store all that. Now these water bladders, they have these water bladders which are really awesome. Imagine a giant balloon, basically. The military uses them. They just need a lot of flat ground, and ideally somewhere where it's not going to get a hole poked in it. Most people right now, they use the standard water tanks, the big old black and green ones. I've been doing math, and they sell these 275 gallon totes. They're sometimes, usually when you buy them, if you buy them used, there might be a little bit of oil or something in them. People are buying them or selling them new for $150. You can find them used for $70. And when you factor in all the costs and stuff, it's a much better buy to just buy the totes. But then you got to plumb everything together and clean it all out. That's a whole other issue. That just depending on your own situation, I would deal with that on that level. However, some of these water tanks, like a 1,500 gallon water tank, I think is about $700 brand new, depending on where you are. Used, I've seen them used on Craigslist for $500. A lot of it is also making sure that algae's not in there. Yeah, there's definitely to it. So the next one would be your contract labor. Again, we were talking about that with the machinery rentals. If you're going to hire people, overestimate. That's the best thing I can tell you. The other thing is also, when it comes to money versus time, you have to, most people forget to factor in the frustration of having to do something over and over again. And to me, that's like cubing the number. It's not even a square, it's a cubed. If I knew I should have fucking done something, oh my god, I'm pissed. And I'm sure you are too. So just trust me, do it right the first time. You don't have to hire a straight up professional, but if it's going to be an 18-year-old kid, and there's nothing wrong with that, because shit, I had an 18-year-old kid do all my stuff, and him and his dad, and they did fucking amazing. Make sure the kid's got a good, head on his shoulders. And I know this sounds weird, but it'd be better if you found an 18-year-old kid that, left high school and has been doing this for a few years, you know what I mean? If you're going to give somebody a chance, at least give the guy that's got some fucking experience a chance. Anyways, power. How are you going to get power to your property? Is going to be solar. Remember that solar right now is expensive as balls. I think it's equivalent $1 a watt or something. So 1,000 watt solar array would cost you about $1,000. 10,000 would be 10,000. I think that's about right now. For your generators, the fuel. Are you going to be using diesel or are you going to be using gas? Remember that, and there's all kinds of stuff, especially on these prepper websites where they talk about diesel generators and which ones perform better and which ones are a little bit more efficient. And as far as which ones are better for different types of use, just factor that in. Another thing is, are you going to be grid tied? Factor in your power bill. Remember that you're going to have things like your security system, your cameras, and whatnot running 24/7. it'd be great to have some sort of backup power in the event something happened. Yeah, what else? Your soil and your growing medium. That's a whole other thing. But I'll just keep going down the list. Your pots, your sprayers, your hoses, your trimming equipment, a drying and a curing area. Many people just fucking grow and then they harvest and have no idea where to put anything. Who cares if you grew fire ass looking weed, but then you dried it too fast or you didn't cure it properly and it just fucked up. That's what happens. That's why the majority of good looking weed turns to shit, and that's why a lot of people only show pictures of, you know, their plants and they'll never let you smoke anything. Or it's just shit. It's because of the curing. You know, if you're going to spend all this money and all this time and invest your energy into this plant, at least have the audacity to go the whole way with it. Factor in your drying and curing space. Environmental controls would be ideal, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. Just do what you can, but make sure that it's on your mind. I can't stress this enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to pay attention to it. Your seeds and your clones. Genetics. Everybody says it's like 80-90% of your product, and it is. Obviously, you can only do so much with what you have. Sometimes when people make seeds, they don't give a shit. And you'll have 1 out of 10. They just don't care. Or the plants that they made the seeds from were not healthy. And so you have shitty seeds. Same thing with clones. Shitty plants, shitty clones. Think about it. Your amendments, your nutrients, your microbial products, and your cloning gels if you need to use cloning gels. Remember, if you're building soil, are you going to be amending your soil midway, through a light depth? Do you top dress? Do you, feed from the bottle? Are you feeding your soil via, microbes and then essentially adding microbial products? Again, factor it all in. Your consultants, anywhere between like $100 to $700 an hour to $1,000 an hour. Do I think they're worth the money? Fuck yeah. They're worth the money because even if it costs you $1,000 an hour, if you can't figure out how to learn essentially, or actually, let me back up. If you can't figure out how to generate $1,000 worth of information in an hour from somebody that's been doing something for 5 to 10 years and has that experience, you're fucking up. It's as simple as that. People give the information, but if you're just hiring a consultant just for information, then no, it's not a great idea. You need to work on your research and you need to use Google. But if you were specifically using them for, I don't know, finding a problem, even $1,000 an hour is still better than losing your entire crop. Think about it. Security, cameras, dogs, personnel. Shit happens. Another thing is, is it really worth spending all this money up front for, you have to have cameras. Ideally, you should have dogs for sure. But for personnel, is it worth hiring them just for weed? Especially when a pound sells, for what some of these guys are wanting an hour, like $100. I know it's crazy, but trust me, there are pounds out there that are selling for $100, and it's fire, and it's just because people grew way too much. It's not that it's bad weed, it's just they grew way too much, and by the time the next harvest comes, they'll still have weed. So they got to get something out of it, and that's what happens. And so using that as an example is spending, if you got it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, if you 8 hours a day, that's 8 pounds worth, $800. Just think about something like that. And that's all I'm bringing all this up is just for you to think about. Your plant tags. I can't remember how much the plant tags are. It might be $1, it might be 50 cents, it might be 25 cents, it might be a couple bucks. Factor it in. Your licensing fees. Obviously, you should already know about that. Your water delivery, if you have to get water delivery. Usually it's about $100 a trip on top of whatever the cost of the water is. Factor it in. Let's see. Shit, your life while you're growing. Most people don't even think about that. They got all this money put into their farm. Like, you have to live also. You know, you have to eat. You have to, if you got to go to the gym, go to the gym. If you, need to have your Starbucks to survive, fuck it, whatever. Like, do you, boo, do you. Just factor it in. Then your employees. There were some amazing people that popped up on my radar when I was looking for somebody to bring on board. But I couldn't afford them. It sucked. I mean, stellar people that had a great experience and were everything that I needed, but they got lives. And I told them straight up, I was like, this is all I can offer you, but I can offer you equity, but I can't pay your bills. And so you lose them, but that's okay, because sometimes things work out, and luckily for me it did. I found somebody even better. The dude lives super close, and he's got a ton of experience.